Okay, so this is lesson 3, and in lesson 3 we're going to create some independent variables that we're going to need to test specific model applications. And so we're going to test a legal model, we're going to test a kind of basic attitudinal model, and we're going to do a kind of more complex whistleblower specification, and we're going to do the strategic model that has sort of everything in it. In terms of the legal model, we have head notes coded already, and head notes is fine, right? It just has a simple number of head notes, and that's that variable will work fine for us. But we'd like to have something for oral argument dates, and so I'm going to create a variable that just simply tells whether the case had an oral argument with it or not. This is a little complex because we're going to have to kind of sort of trick it, but I'll show you what we're going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to transform compute variable, and I'm going to call this oral argument. So I've got oral argument in there, and I'm going to use a missing value kind of function. So let me show you where this is. So if you go down here and you click on function group and it says missing values, if you click on missing, it'll say missing variable, and then so we're going to missing. If this variable has a missing value, it returns a 1 or true if the variable has a system or user missing value. So what we're going to do is we're going to say oral arguments equals missing. So you click on the observation, you go over here to oral date and just put that in there, but make sure you go down here and click include all cases. That's the key, because if you keep that kind of if-then condition from the previous calculation, then it'll only do it for some of the observations. So oral arguments, missing oral arguments, and just all observations down here. Click OK. Let it run, and then out here we should have oral arguments. And so what I want to do is move that a little bit closer. So I have oral arguments here. I have the oral argument date. So you just click down hard on it and you move it up. And then so I have the oral date and the oral argument right there. Let me go look at it and make sure I did it correctly. And so what it says is these are all missing and then these are zeros, right? But that's not exactly what I want to control for. I want to control for these observations with actual oral argument dates in them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply recode this particular variable. But it did everything right. It's just reversed, or it's inverted from where I want. So what we do is we just simply invert it, right? So I'm going to click on transform, recode into the same variables. I'm going to get rid of that follow one. I'm going to go up because I moved the variable and it's the oral arg. And then I'm going to say, and it's real critical that we do this all at the same time, I'm going to say old variable of 0 and 1. I'm going to change all my zeros to 1s. I don't know why, but this thing has never been very good at showing you what's in there. And 0. And let me see if I can add that one. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I've got oral arguments. I'm going to change all my zeros to 1s and my 1s to zeros. I have to do this at the same time, otherwise I'll completely mess up the variable, but make sure you get both of them in there. Click OK. Make sure you don't have any if condition in there, and then click OK, and we should be good. Let me go back, and let's look at oral argument now. Oral argument now has the ones where I need them to. So I've coded my first independent variable. Okay, so I've got my first oral argument kind of identifier in there. The next legal model variable that I want to put in there is kind of a duration measure, a measure of the period from the initial landmark date to the decision date of the opinion that we're looking at. Or the progeny opinion. So to do that, I have to first get a variable in there associated with the landmark date. So I'm going to say transform compute variable, and then I'm going to go down. This one I'm just going to call it L date. So for landmark date, and I'm going to go down here for date creation on the function group, and then you'll see one that says date, month, day, year. And so we'll just move this up. Actually, make sure you delete all that other stuff first. And then in here, you just put the different digits for your date. So in this case, Texas v. Johnson was on June 21st, 1989. Okay? And so I'm going to create L date. That's going to be 6/21/1989. Click OK. And if I go out here on the end of this, I should have that L date. If I click L date and then I change it to a date and do month, day, year, and go back, I got 6/21/1989. Right. On these dates up here, I'll probably go and change those as well right now. So in terms of the decision date, I'll just make that month, day, year, or month, day, year like that. In this one, the oral date, I can do the same thing. I always kind of like those better because it makes it kind of traditional, or the way we typically look at those things. So I've got a decision date here and I've got a landmark date here, and all I'm going to do now is I'm going to transform and create another variable. To create my duration variable, I'm just going to simply compute again. I'm going to put duration, and then I'm going to get rid of this and ask it to do some date arithmetic. So I'm going to do date difference. And so the first difference is going to be, I put L date, so date 2. Actually, I need to do the second one. Decision date should go first. Then what we'll put in is the L date. So it's going to subtract L date from this one. And then you have to tell it what unit you want. And so just put in quotes. Let's do years. Years is easy enough. So date difference between the decision date of the progeny and the landmark date, and express that in years. Don't have any if-then conditional statement. Click that OK. And so now at this point, I've got my 24 years down to 0 years. This happened in 1989. Okay, so I've got my 2 additional variables for the legal model kind of perspective. Now I need to add one for, actually, and we're going to add 2, and you're going to use one of them for the whistleblower perspective. So in terms of whistleblower, we've already coded it in terms of the panel, right? So that variable goes from 1 to 4 essentially, and variables 2 and values 2 and 3 of the whistle panel are basically the prospective whistleblower situations. And so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to code what are prospective democratic whistleblower situations. So I'm going to say compute variable, and I'm going to say, instead of duration, I'm going to say DNC whistle, and I'm going to say that equals 1 if whistle panel, get rid of all that, and go down here to whistle panel, equals 3. And this, you can find these values in the exercise from part 1. That's where these values are. Okay. So I'm going to say DNC whistleblower equals 1 if whistle panel equals 3. Okay. Click OK. And sure enough, out here I've got a new variable with a dichotomous variable potentially with missing values. I'm going to change those in a bit. Okay, the other one that I'm going to do is I'm going to compute RNC whistleblower, so RNC whistle equals 1 if whistle panel equals 2. So for all those situations where I have whistle panel. That's kind of the opposite of those, and then these will be kind of unanimous panels, right? So good. Now I just need to go through and replace these system missing values with zeros. To do that, I'm going to transform, recode into the same variables. I'm going to get rid of this one. I'm going to put in my two whistleblower ones. I'm going to say old and new values. Make sure you get rid of these immediately. And what we're going to do is we're going to do system missing equals 0. So just add that one, click continue, and it's going to take any system missing values, make them 0 for those, then we'll have our dichotomous variables. Okay, so I've got DNC, RNC, whistle. If you like, what we can do is we can quickly go through, actually analyze descriptive statistics and crosstabs. You can get rid of that one. We'll just do the DNC. Put the DNC in the columns, and then put the whistle panel up there. Click OK. And sure enough, whistle panel is number 3. You can do the same thing. Analyze descriptive statistics, crosstabs. Instead of DNC whistleblower, put the RNC over there. Okay, good. And so I've got number 2s are there, and all the rest of them are 0s. Okay, so net, I now have all the variables I need to run our model specifications, but before we do those, we actually need to put some labels on these values and plot them. So the next exercise is going to involve some labeling for these different values.